Hi there, in this clip I want to show you how to add a primary key after the fact. So we've defined a table, we forgot the primary key constraint, and we want to define it afterwards. And this applies whether it is a single attribute primary key or a multiple attribute primary key. So first let's create a table. Create table, test table, and it's got an employee number, which is an integer, and it's got a project number, which is also an integer, and it's got hours, which is a decimal. And we'll say for the decimal, 10 digits total, 2 of those digits will be to the right of the decimal point, and we will close it off, and we will semicolon it, and we are good to go. And when we describe test table, it has no key. And we say, oh wait, this was that table for the works on example in your homework, and we need it to have a concatenated primary key of employee number and project number. Okay, so we can do that. We have to alter the table, and we are altering the table test table, and we are adding a primary key, and the primary key will be emp number, comma, because it's concatenated with the project number. And so those two attributes together will be forming the primary key. If it were a single attribute, we would just do this. We don't want it to be a single attribute. We want it to be a concatenated primary key. So we do this. And there we go. One word of warning: if your table already has data in it, and those data are incompatible with the primary key definition. Suppose, for example, that we just defined a primary key of emp number like this, and we have 3 records in the database, or in the table rather, and all 3 records have exactly the same employee number. Well, guess what? That is inconsistent with the requirements of a primary key. So the system will say, hold the phone, folks. That's not going to work, and it will not let you create that primary key. Okay? So let's also show you how to drop a key. So we can alter table, test table, drop primary key. Just that simple. We don't need to specify what the primary key is. And why is that? There's always only one primary key. There's never multiple primary keys. So we say drop that primary key, and boom, we are done. One other thing I want to show you is how to add a primary key constraint with a name. So we can alter table, test table, add constraint, which is a new thing. It is a more general term, okay? And so we specify that this constraint has a name. We can call it PK underscore test table. That is the name of our constraint. Now let's define the type of constraint it is. It is a primary key constraint, and it consists of emp number, comma, proj number. Now you could say, why is this giving me any advantage? And in terms of primary keys, it's not necessarily, because as we saw back in the drop example here, you don't need to know the name of a primary key constraint to get rid of it. You don't even have to know which attributes compose the primary key. All you have to do is say drop the primary key. That's true. I do, however, want to introduce you to the idea that constraints can have names, because guess what? Primary key constraints are not the only constraints. You can also have foreign key constraints. We need a separate video to sort of delve into what it means to have a foreign key constraint and what it allows you to do and what you can do without ever defining a foreign key. So stay tuned for that. But that's another type of constraint where it may be advantageous for you to be able to give a name to that constraint. There are also constraints unrelated to keys, and those are very useful to name and to name meaningfully, so you can go back and modify them and delete them as indicated. Hope that's helpful. Stay tuned for more. Study hard, and I will see you online.